I don't know if there are if there's anybody in the room representing objectors who may have questions for Mr. Whitehouse, but I'd just like to check before we put a few to him. Nobody's indicated, right? Right, Mr. Whitehouse, just a few questions for you, please, after the ones you've already had. There's reference in your evidence to the core scenario. I think essentially with reference to things not being included in it. Can you just explain for us your understanding of the core scenario?
In broad terms, the core scenario captures the expected future. So it draws on the existing transport network and future committed schemes, and it reflects the population, employment, housing growth set out in the local plan. And then when you come to do the testing, you use that core scenario with and without the scheme that you are looking to assess the impacts of.
So it includes all schemes that are currently committed?
Yes. Back to that. Well, in terms of that, using that that table we saw about near, certain, and
yes,
so on. Yes.
So in terms of Bourne Airfield and West Cambourne?
So for this economic appraisal, following the identification of the quantum of housing that was dependent on the scheme, that is not included in the growth. DfT asked you to use the fixed land use for that analysis, so you don't include anything that is dependent on the scheme in that core scenario.
So therefore you'd include them partially?
Yeah. You'd include, so for example with Bourne Airfield, where we talked about the 3,500 houses altogether, you would include the 500 homes. They would be included in that core scenario, but not the additional dependent 3,000.
Yeah. And what about employment development?
Employment is similarly, it will be based on an assessment of what's in the local plan and what's coming forward, using that same uncertainty table to look at how it is categorised.
Okay. Thank you. Just want to ask you about something in one of the core documents. I'll just find my reference. It's core document 827, which I think is the audit report.
The auditing report. Okay.
And when you've got there, I want to go to page 75.
Okay. Yes, I'm there.
And it's the penultimate subheading, which is first to the online scheme of bus priority measures, but it also makes reference to the preferred option on the third line down. Now it refers to it there as a long-term solution, which seems to contrast with other short-term measures. Is that your understanding of the characterisation of the proposed busway?
I have no view on sort of long and short term. I think we've talked about it would clearly take a number of years to go through the process and get delivered. But I'm not. We haven't considered it. I'm sort of the heading of short or long term solution. If it's meaning long term solution, as in once it's in place, it is there for the solution. Do you mean in that respect? Yes, we have considered it as being in place and then supporting the housing up to 2048, 49, I believe, and beyond. Sorry, that's yeah. I thought you meant as in delivery date.
Right, into your proof now. Just a question about some dates. And I'm going first to page. I haven't got a page reference, but I think it's paragraph 2521. And then
Okay.
and at the same time, I've got 3.2.4, and it's just a question why you're using different base date references. And the first one, referring to the financial case, you're using figures from April 2024. Later on, you're referring in another situation to rebasing to 2010.
Yes. There is one single source of truth for these numbers.
Yeah.
For the financial case, which is looking at affordability, you are required to it's asking how much funding you need. So
Yes.
you generally present it in today's prices and then what you need. For the economic assessment, TAG guidance is that everything is presented in 2010 prices and values.
But doesn't that lead to a problem in consistency in terms of what?
No, or how so? Right, are you saying?
Well, because values change over time between 2010 and 2024.
They do, and DFT gives DFT give you the GDP deflator to use to rebase backwards and forwards.
But if you're presenting them, if you're referring to them being presented at different dates in your evidence, which you appear to be, that doesn't seem to take account of that adjustment that you've just referred to.
So I'm not quite understanding the question. So the scheme was costed. QSs costed the scheme in a price base, and then
then that's dealt with on page 21, when you've got a table 3.1 setting out costs.
So that's in nominal costs, yes.
And you say it's produced in 2010 prices.
The nominal costs, the nominal costs are the nominal costs, but then for the purposes of the benefit cost ratio,
Yes.
that number, that 192 million,
yeah.
will be rebased, discounted for the purposes of the economic appraisal.
To match with the April to 2024. To be consistent with that.
Sorry, which reference to April 2024?
2521. Under the financial case.
Well, it's consistent because it's the same source numbers, but they're serving different purposes. That's part of the 5 cases. They
Yes.
serve different purposes.
But nevertheless, is it? You mentioned rebasing one set of figures.
Yes. Yes, using the DGP deflator, you rebase the figures.
But just let me be clear, which ones are you rebasing? Deflating?
The figures from the QSs for the scheme estimate are generally produced in present day costs or
Yes.
most recent cost base, then
So
assumptions...
is that your April 2024 figures? Because that you're
They'll
saying
be the ones in-
you're saying
they'll be the-
2521. You're reporting there the capital cost estimates.
Yes, so the financial case will be reporting those capital cost estimates.
Yes.
And that's to support the financial case and the affordability. And then we take those numbers and, in line with guidance, we strip out inflation,
Yeah.
because, and that's when we rebase from that 2024 back to 2010,
Right.
and discount to recognise costs in the future. And that means that the costs are in the same unit of account as the benefits
Yes.
are.
Okay, thanks. Staying in the same part of your proof, page 19, please, and the very short paragraph 2529. No updates were made to the commercial case and the outline business case.
Yes.
Yeah. There were no updates to be made, or?
Yes, there were no updates. As we say, the addendum is a companion document to the OBC.
Yes.
So the addendum has carried updates, but the commercial position on GCP's proposals of how to deliver the scheme and procure it were unchanged at the time of doing the addendum.
So the question was considered, but there was nothing to do.
Yes, yeah, it was decided there was no material change.
And then I think, yeah, 3. Yeah, page 22, please, 3.2.8.
Sorry, 3.2.8.
8. Yeah.
Thank you.
Paragraph with a number of bullet points. And
Yes.
you set out some scheme transport benefits. If this is for somebody else, please tell me. I'm interested in the first bullet point, which is to do with the assessment of journey time and where it's to, because in the second line you're talking about the journey from Cambourne West to the city centre, but then you put Grange Road in brackets. Does the reference to city centre actually mean Grange Road, or does it mean somewhere else?
I believe it means Grange Road. It's the busway. It's the segregated route element.
And has an assessment been done to the city centre?
The modelling coded the buses going to the city centre, yes. The services were not assumed to terminate at Grange Road.
So the figures you've got in there in that first bullet point with the difference in journey time, are they just figures for the distance covered by the busway, or are they to the city centre?
That they are to Grange Road.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a couple of clarifications,
Okay.
please. In your proof in 4.3.5, which is page 29,
Yes.
and then so you're talking about the value for money for the scheme. The last sentence talks about the final value for money category has the potential to be considered for high value for money. This is when I think one of the options you're given if an additional 2,000 homes are delivered at Cambourne. Can you just explain where that 2,000 the additional 2,000 homes figure has come from and where it relates to?
So this 2,000 homes is a rounding of the 1,950 homes that I mentioned for Cambourne and were discussed and as set out in policy. C2C is mentioned as a potential sort of enabler for sustainable travel there.
And is there's a reference after that CD932. Is that the source of that figure, or does that just quote the figure from somewhere else?
I think that takes you to the note that presents the resulting indicative benefit cost ratio if those benefits are assumed.
Thank you. I think that's all. No, that's the only one I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Cambourne, re-examination.
Yes, please, sir. Can I just start by if I can just, I don't want to answer Mr. Underwood's question, but if you want to know where the 1950 comes from, I don't think it's in dispute. It's from the Emerging Local Plan. So it's core document 604, I think. And that refers to, for example, on page 41, to around 2,000 from new proposals for an expanded Cambourne. So it's the Emerging Local Plan is proposing another 2,000 or 1,950 homes at Cambourne. But
Yes.
Thanks for the clarification.
can I just, what I'm going to do, Mr. Whitehouse, is ask you some questions in re-examination to clarify some points, and I'm going to ask them in the order that you were asked by Mr. Parker.
Okay.
Now, when I ask a question, if you don't understand it because I put it badly, please say so, and I will put it again.
Okay.
But I'm going to start just with a question you were asked by Mr. Clegg, so that we can just deal with that if we can. And you were asked about this point about 2024 prices and then rebasing to 2010. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It's only just been asked it, so I hope you remember it. And you were asked about table 3.1 on page 21 of your proof, if you could just turn that up.
Yes.
And if we see that, those are nominal scheme costs. And then you say in 3.2.4, which you were asked about, discounted and rebased to produce 2010 present values and 2010 prices. Then if you turn over the page, you get the answer. So that the costs, the scheme capital costs, being converted from nominal, rebased to 2010, come to how much?
Come to 82.3 million present value.
And is that, or is it not, the figure that then goes into the economic assessment at 2010 prices?
That is correct.
Well, I was trying to ask a question that wasn't capable of being answered, that is correct, because I said, is it or is it not? But
So it is
thank you.
in there.
Okay. Those are, and I hope, sir, that answers what helps in answer to your question. Right, let's turn back to Mr. Parker's questions. And we're going to start, please, at the beginning. So we need to go to core document 12507, please. I know I seem to have lost, but I'll have it in a minute. And this is Appendix F to the transport assessment. You remember you were asked quite a lot of questions about this. Have you got it? And the other thing is, if I start asking you a question before you've got the document, tell me.
Sorry, I just lost internet connection, so...
Oh.
Right, sorry, I'll now try the link. So I have the document, yes.
You remember you were asked some questions about 1.1 of this document.
Yes.
On page 10, if you in the PDF, if you can go to it.
I'm there.
And the heading to 1.1 we can all read is background. So what is this paragraph trying to set out? Is it trying to set out what is to be done, or what has been done, or what?
It is setting out how the model has been, the CSRM model has been updated and how it has been developed in line with the TAG guidance at the time.
So we can see at the beginning of 1.1 the original model CSRM1 was developed between 2006 and 2009, and then in 2015, second unnumbered subparagraph, early in 2015, it was recognised that the 2006 base year validation made it less suitable for work, and then a revalidation was commissioned, and then that had a base year of 2015.
Yes.
So the history was 2006 base, 2015 base, and then we get to the part that you were asked about, which is on top of page 11.
Yes.
And it says, well, it's been read out lots of times, so I don't think I need to read it out, but it's the words I'm interested in asking you about. F series improved the level of detail, added a 2019 present year validation to extend the life of the model until such time as a whole new base year can be created once the disruption to travel behaviours and patterns caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has settled to a new normal state. First question is, does it or does it not provide a fixed date as to when that work should be carried out?
It doesn't provide a fixed date.
And it says that it added a 2019 present year validation until such time as a whole new base year can be created. And then in brackets, once the disruption to travel behaviour and patterns caused by COVID has settled to a new normal state. Now, can you establish as a matter of science whether travel behaviour and patterns caused have settled to a new normal state as hard mathematics, or does it also, or does it not also involve judgment?
It involves judgment on the data, and you need a bit of hindsight in order to know what you're looking back on and whether it has got to a place you think is new normal.
And so it has that matter of judgment, and if you were to decide to create a new base year, how long would it take to do? I mean, what would you have to do to capture the data, create the model, etc., and how long would it take?
I'll give you an overview, because I can't give you the details of it, but clearly the first element is to go and provide the collect count data, which needs to be from a neutral period of the year. So you need to find an appropriate time when the traffic is characteristic of the majority of the year, and then use that data to baseline the model, which I understand from modelling colleagues takes potentially 18 months or so to provide a model that you can then start to use to provide new forecasts.
Does the model have to be validated?
Yes, if you want to, yes.
Is that included in the 18 months or not?
I believe so. My understanding is about 18 months before you can then start using it for new analysis.
So you get to and that's after you've got the data?
Yes, once the data is the input to it.
So 18 months plus however long it takes you to obtain the data?
Yes, that needs to happen first, yes.
And how long would that take? I suppose can you tell us? Or
it varies. I mean, if for the sake of argument, if it was July when you were thinking about it, you would have to wait until October, end of September, to view that as being a sort of neutral month to collect data, because you want to avoid main holidays or notably changed circumstances.
So, bearing that in mind, you were asked a number of questions as to why you didn't have a rebased model, and your answer was it was not proportionate to do so.
Yes.
And you were taken to, and I'm jumping about in your evidence in order to save time, but you were taken to the uncertainty advice given in tag unit M4, core document 821. Do you remember that?
I recall that discussion. 824.
And you were asked some questions about that. And can we go to 821 and to B 3.4 on page 54?
54. Sorry,
B.3.4 on page 54.
Yes.
Just let others find that. So if we go back to B3 and we just see this in context on page 53, page 4. And we can see third line of B3.1, rebasing of models takes time and resources.
Yes.
And the proportionate update process in TAG allows judgments of proportionality to be made when considering to what extent models need to be updated relative to the scope of decisions required and the surrounding risks. So here, what was the scope of the decision required?
The scope was the key element considered was what would the impact on the overarching case be, the strength of the case, and therefore the information or the information to be put in front of decision makers.
And here you've explained the 3 levels of BCR that you look at: the initial, adjusted and indicative.
Yeah.
And which part of the contributing factors would the work based on a rebased model affect or influence?
The rebased model would affect the benefits captured under the initial benefits, and also have an influence on the second level of benefits captured in the adjusted BCR metric.
And what about when you get to land value uplift in the indicative?
They don't play a role in that valuation of benefits.
And in this case, we know that on the initial and adjusted, we got to 0.5 BCR.
Yes.
And it's the land value uplift which makes it the benefits exceed the costs.
Yes.
Was that, or was it not, a relevant factor when you were considering whether it was proportionate to commission a rebased model?
Yes.
So was it relevant?
It was relevant, yes, looking at the overarching value for money case, seeing the role that would be played by changing this.
And then if we look at B3.4, do you remember you were asked about this?
Yes, the 3 options, yes.
Yeah. And if we look at the introduction, before we turn to the options, several options, and then the second sentence, there are examples of possible approaches set out below. It should be noted that other approaches may be acceptable based on the best judgment and careful consideration of the analyst. So is this prescriptive? Are they examples? Are they what you have to do, or an example of what you may do?
No, as stated, examples of possible approaches.
Yeah. So if you make a judgment that it's not proportionate to rebase the model, and then you take a decision on that and you do a sensitivity test of the type you've described,
Yes.
is that consistent or inconsistent with the guidance?
I believe that's consistent with the guidance.
Thank you. Now, can I just ask you to turn to another document you were asked about, and this is when you were asked some questions about timing. When did the applicant's team look at sensitivity changes and so on? So if we go to CD 932, please. And you were asked questions on this. We need to go to
Yes.
yeah, but I've now got my reference wrong, just give me a moment. Page 5, thank you very much, Mr. Henderson. So paragraph 18, I made the mistake in my note of writing page 18 rather than paragraph, and then found there wasn't one. So paragraph 18, and this is a WSP note. It then says, COVID-19 pandemic caused a change in trip making, creating uncertainty over future levels of transport demand in the Cambourne to Cambridge corridor. To test the materiality of this uncertainty on the value for money case for the scheme, a sensitivity test was undertaken and documented based on the uncertainty toolkit. And there's a reference there to core document 925, which you were not asked about in this series of questions. So can we just turn that up, please? Express reference to it. And once you've got that, 925.
I have that.
Yeah. And we can see as background, third sub-paragraph or paragraph under background, a third set of Saturn-only runs were undertaken for sensitivity tests on the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on traffic levels, now in the future for the core minus, with and without making connections. And then so this is a technical note. What's the date of this technical note?
The date is 31st of January 2024.
So was the sensitivity point related to the effects of COVID-19 considered before or after the outline business case addendum?
I believe it was produced after we
Well,
had worked on the addendum.
This is January 2024. What date's the addendum?
Yeah, sorry, the addendum is November 2024. We were working on it in the months, obviously, leading up to that.
So if it's the months leading up to November 2024, even on my understanding of the year, January comes before that.
Yes, no, I agree on that. I to be honest, I cannot recall exactly which months we were working on it.
Right. But if it's January 2024,
It proceeds
does it come before October?
It does, yes.
Now, we're going to move on now to some points about land value uplift and dependencies. Do you remember when you were asked about Cambourne, how did you get the 850 and so?
Yes, I recall.
So just some bigger picture points on this. Can we just take up your rebuttal, please, for a start? And you were asked about this in a slightly different context, but you were asked about it. You were asked about this when it was on land value uplift, but it was on the gross development value point.
Okay.
3220.
See it.
If you got that, the last sentence. In a scenario assuming dependent development benefits associated with additionality of 2415 houses, So this is below the assumptions that you've made.
Yes.
The assessment of value for money remains medium. Now, this is in your rebuttal, that's your statement, is it? It's not.
Yes. Yeah.
And how did you get to that conclusion?
The conclusion was based on undertaking analysis of the revised, based taking on Mr. Lee's point.
Yes. So he says lower additionality. But then you say the assessment of value for money remains medium. And it may be if we turn to the OBC economic addendum and we have the switching values, could you explain it, or can you explain it without those? And I want to turn to those in a minute anyway.
Well, I mean, in effect, we're saying that there is the amount of benefit generated by the 3,073 homes, as noted in paragraph 3.219, gives us our BCR of indicative BCR of 1.8, and we're saying that the switching values are looking at what percentage almost decrease in that. Are you still above 1.5 to 1, which implies medium value for money? And by testing this revised scenario, we would still generate a benefit to cost ratio above that 1.5 to 1.
So for all the time we spent on whether you should take into account the 850 at Cambourne or not, whether you do or you don't, or if you don't take it into account, so you reduce the number, and let's say you've just got the Mr. Lee's figure of 3073, what you're saying there is it's still medium value for money.
Yes, a lower level of dependency would still give you that.
And shall we just, while we're dealing with this, go to 121, it's core document 12102, which is the addendum outline business case, is the economic part of it. And if you go to table 422, you've got your switching values.
Yes.
Just give me a page, please.
Page 29, sir, sorry.
Thank you.
So if you, on the core scenario, so that's not adding on the additional 2,000 homes from the local plan, emerging local plan proposals.
Yes.
And it's with displacement, because later on we've got a no displacement figure and a core with 2,000 additional and no displacement. So
Yes.
core, and if we've got 75% of the assumed land value uplift, we can see we're still in medium.
We are, yes.
And even if you had half, it's low. So from what the evidence you've given earlier, that means benefits exceed costs.
Benefits still exceed costs, yes.
So if you took off we'll come on to why you put the 850 in a moment, but this is just the bigger picture. If you took off the 850, would you or would you not still have a positive business case?
You'd still have greater benefits than costs.
Yeah. And you say in your rebuttal that at 2415 you still remain medium.
Yes.
Okay. Can we then go to, you were asked about core document 1 2016, so if we can still go to that. And if in that document we can go to, I'm going to just go there first before giving you the wrong page reference. If we go to page 68, please, and you were asked about table 8 and the reference to Cambourne West.
Yes, I'm there.
And 3 columns, development site, tells you where it is. And key evidence, including development status and there is a summary, and if you look there on Cambourne West, under the first bullet point, it says, although there is no Grampian condition, last sentence, do you have that?
I can see that, yes.
That prevented the start of the development until infrastructure works began. The Section 106 agreement negotiated contributions towards the C2C project.
Yes.
And how did the... And if we look at that, we can see that there are trigger points, and they are 3.2 million to be paid in 2 instalments of 1.6 million to be paid prior to the 250 and 450th dwelling, the sum of 5.5 million to be paid before the 1500 dwelling occupation. And we know that there were 2,350, so the part that you say is dependent, or the analysis assumed was dependent, is the difference between the 1500 and the 2,350, is it?
That is correct, that difference, yes.
And if we look at the right-hand column, you were asked about the first bullet point. Assume the housing is 100% dependent.
Yes.
But then if we look at the second bullet point, what does that tell us?
It recognises that the high levels of demand for housing in the area, and hence that it says that likely that some housing will come forward before the C2C project is completed.
Right. So, in terms of the justification for the 850, what is it?
Justification is that the analysis identified that the housing is clearly dependent upon the scheme, but in the latest modelling, recognition of the high levels of market demand and the Section 106 triggers. So not all the 2,350 housing was used, but that 850 beyond the final trigger.
Thank you. But going back to the questions I asked you before, even if you were to, well, if you were to exclude that 850, not that you did it, but if you were, what does the sensitivity testing show you in terms of the value for money outcome?
The as stated in the rebuttal, the analysis demonstrates that reduction in benefits does not change the overall value for money categorisation of the scheme.
Thank you. You were then asked some question about commercial uses at Bourne Airfield and Cambourne, and you said that they were not included in the monetised impacts.
That is correct.
So have those benefits been taken into account for the purposes of economic assessment? Any benefits?
No,
from the
they haven't.
commercial?
There's no monetised benefits from them.
Thank you. You were asked one, coming on to land values in a moment, but you were asked about east-west rail. It was put to you that east-west rail would unlock some housing before 2041. Just ask you this, have you seen any evidence as to when east-west rail will be in place, and any evidence as to whether any development is dependent upon it?
I am aware that in the East-West Rail documentation, they, I think, have a mid-2030s sort of anticipated date, but I haven't, and then the second point, I haven't seen anything specifically that defines dependent development on East-West Rail.
Thank you. The land value point, you were asked about core document 12102. Again, which is the addendum
Yes.
case, and we need to go there to, and I'll give you a page number in a moment, to a number of references, just getting to the best one, which sorry, just give me a moment. I'm just gonna, I just want that Aspinall Birdie reference.
4.4.31.
Thank you very much. Yep. Thank you. So page 22. And you were asked about this, and you were asked about the evidence put on behalf of CPPF and current values.
Yes.
Now, if you're carrying out an economic analysis of this type, how is it consistent with the approach taken, or inconsistent if you suddenly have some other bit of information that comes along to, in effect, slot that in place of information you've got already? How is that something you do or you don't do, or does it depend on what the information is?
It depends what the information is. In this case, the viability assessment was site-specific and drew on a wide range of data sets, and therefore it was commissioned for the purposes of the land. So that is of a higher quality than right move sample.
And we can see it says in 4.4.31, the viability assessment by Aspinall Verde estimated an average value of residential land, and they gave a value, and we can see that it was 2021 prices changed to current year 2024 with GDP deflator. So which is more, well, going back to my initial question, is the fact that you've now got some Rightmove data, is that the type of information which supplants or replaces a site-based valuation by a firm of experts in valuation?
No, stick with the viability specific, site specific work.
And that viability site specific work, we've seen here, because you mentioned earlier, it makes assumptions on profit levels as a proportion of gross development value, sales costs, marketing costs. It makes assumptions on costs and things.
Yes.
Is information from Rightmove a substitute for that? Proper substitute for it?
No, I don't. No, Rightmove doesn't provide that information.
Thank you. Now, just give me one moment. Thank you very much, Mr. Gone again now. Thank you very much, Mr. Whitehouse. I haven't got any further questions for you, so I think, unless Mr. Parker's got his finger on the button, don't relax.
I'm poised. It's not to ask Mr. White. It was just to make one very minor point about the last question Mr. Cameron asked, which was about Rightmove data. Of course, the data that I quoted to Mr. Lee, just for your note, was land registry data as well as Rightmove data. It wasn't limited to Rightmove data. I just want to make sure you have that note.
Well,
that's it from me.
well, thank you. Well, I'll ask the same question so that we get a fair answer. Is information from land registry and from websites such as Rightmove, which relate to prices, equivalent to a residual valuation carried out on a specific site?
Sorry, I've lost. I would value more highly the site-specific feasibility assessment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't mind.
Much, Mr. Whitehouse. I'm sorry that you're interrupted this morning by Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Cameron, I'm conscious that you've identified 2 hours examination in chief for your next witness. We also need to have a break sometime this afternoon, so I'm just wondering whether we should have a break now and then carry on, or whether we should start with Mr. Lonergan and have a break.
I think we should probably have a break now, sir, because Mr. Lonergan can then set up. And also, I'm hopeful that we won't take the full 2 hours. The danger with these estimates is you make them before you've seen the rebuttals and so on. And hopefully we'll come in under, get a few credits for that and use them up later.
Okay, thank you. Well, should we just say 10 minutes or quarter now? So we'll adjourn now and we'll resume at 1:15. Thank you. Okay, well, I'll make it 3:15, so it's time for me to resume this inquiry. And I'll hand straight over to Mr. Cameron to introduce your next witness, please.
Thank you, sir. Next witness is John Lonergan. So are you Mr. Lonergan?
Yes.
Good. You have a proof of evidence, and you set out your views in that evidence, and we'll go to the qualifications and experience first, and then I'll ask you about the veracity of the evidence, which I forgot to ask Mr. Whitehouse, but I'm sure it's there in black and white. Section 1.1 of your evidence set out your degree. You're a chartered engineer, fellow of both the Institution of Civil Engineers and the Geological Society of London, member of the Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation, Permanent Way Institution and the Association of Project Management. And you have over 39 years of construction experience, primarily working on transport infrastructure. And you set out your past experience and some of the projects, a project you've been involved in. You refer to construction there. How much of your time is spent supervising construction and how much giving advice?
So up until 2014 I was on sites, either supervising or planning construction and managing it on sites. Since then I have been providing advice, construction advice for pre-construction. Up until 2014 I was full-time on sites. I was doing planning, supervision and engineering on them, and after that I have been doing construction advice and methodology for schemes, pre-implementation, and then I was actually on site again on Great Western electrification for another 2 years, and since then construction advice within multidisciplinary design teams.
So in terms of practical experience of building out infrastructure projects, including road projects, are you somebody who's spent your career in the office, or have you seen how it's done and done it?
So half of it, over half was directly on site, and for the other sections I've been concentrating on construction, partly on site and partly in the office.
Thank you.
But very much construction focused.
Yep. So your evidence set out declaration of truth at the end, and is this evidence, your written evidence, true and correct?
Yes, so I think you found 2 page numbers that are, yeah.
Right. Well, we're going to, we'll do the 2 corrections, subject to 2 corrections. Let's go to those now. 5.1b on page 8, please. The date of that consultation report, was it November 2004 or some other date?
2024.
Thank you. And 5.4.1, not the end of the world, but I think the page number needs to be changed in that reference, doesn't it?
Page 41, please.
Thank you. So with those corrections, is it correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt at this point. Just in terms of corrections, can I just ask at paragraph 1.2.1? It looks like there's a sort of an instruction for a reference. Just to clarify that. Am I looking at the right one?
The rebuttal, I think.
Apologies. Sorry, I've jumped ahead. No, I think
Reference, I haven't got a 1.2.1 in the rebuttal, so.
no. Oh, sorry. Yes, it is in the main. It is in the main proof. Scope of evidence. 1.2.1 just says append CPP report.
Oh, well, mine doesn't. You've got a special.
Mine doesn't either.
A bit worried about whether you've got a.
Right. Okay. I've obviously got a Duff paper copy.
Well,
Can I just make sure I've got the correct...
yes, I'm a bit worried that we've got...
You're both right. Mr. Underwood's referring to the summary,
Oh, sorry.
Right.
and there is something strange there.
Yeah. Apologies if it's just a summary in that case.
Oh, so got it here.
It's on page 1.
Yeah. I think we just delete that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, apologies, I've got the summary rather than the main bit open.
Oh,
Thank you
we'll
for
come on to
clarifying
the rebuttal in a moment, but is that true and correct as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Right. Not going to ask you to read anything, but we're going to, rather like with Mr. Whitehouse, although I don't think it will take as long, we're going to deal with design standards, and we're going to then deal with need for the maintenance track. We have a short response to note response to Claire Hall on points, but they're in writing, so I won't ask for extra oral evidence on that as they're not here. Although I may ask you something and they can see it if they're on the recording, and then we're going to go to CPPF, and we're going to concentrate on your analysis of the CPPF alternative scheme, which is what we're going to spend most time on. So let's just start with design standards, and if we go to your proof of evidence at 5.2, you've got a heading, design standards and guidance, and you identify various elements of guidance to which you've had reference. Now, you refer at 5.2.2 to the design manual for roads and bridges, which the inspectors will be familiar with. And you say it's a collection of guidance and standards for work on high-speed, all-purpose roads in the UK. Does this apply to roads such as the A1303?
Yes, it does.
And how do we get to that answer?
There's a series of tests which are actually listed in the appendix.
Well, shall we go to
Yeah.
core document 906, which is an extract from the design manual for roads and bridges, and it's the introduction to that manual. And if we go to page 5, once you're there,
Sorry, just say the reference again.
yeah, 9-06.
Yeah, and it's page.
Got it 5, please. We can see the design manual for roads and bridges under background at the top is a suite of documents which contains requirements and advice relating to works on motorway and all-purpose trunk roads for which one of the overseeing organisations is Highway or Road Authority.
Sorry, I'm just struggling to get the right document open.
Oh, sorry. Well, do tell me if you haven't got the document
I
opened,
haven't,
because I
but,
won't ask a question before you have.
Yes, I'm there.
Jolly good. So it's a suite of documents relating to works on motorway and all-purpose trunk roads, for which one of the overseeing organisations is Highway or Road Authority. And you tell us in your evidence that it's, and you've just told us orally that it's applicable to the A1303, so I'd just like to understand why that's the case.
It's part of the strategic route network. It's a major link between, in this case, the M11 and the A428. It's part of a diversionary scheme. Hold on, I'll get the exact words. I didn't memorise them, I'm afraid. Right, so it's looked after by the Cambridge County Council rather than National Highways, but the A1303 Mattingley Road it's an A road within the classification.
Where are you looking?
I'm looking at, we'd actually wrote it down in my rebuttal, in CD 2601.
Is this, are you in your rebuttal?
Yes.
Right, and page number?
Page number 13.
Sure we're on page 13?
And 14, it's just over the top.
Is it?
So at the bottom of 13, 3.2 route context, 3.2.1, and then there's a bullet at the bottom, and then there's more bullets over the top, over the page.
I don't think my page numbers are different. No. Can I ask you to...
You're in your appendices.
Rebuttal appendices, yes, sorry.
Are not in the rebuttal
No,
itself?
no.
If we got the rebuttal, if everybody's got the rebuttal, and you go to the table in the rebuttal on page 20, just trying to save time.
Sorry.
Um,
I'm doing it.
okay. Page 20 in the rebuttal, there's a table, and there's a paragraph number in the left-hand column.
Sorry, I'll just open it on screen.
Okay, well let's reverse to the appendices. Let's go back to the appendices to the rebuttal if it's easier for you, and we'll go to page 13 and 14 and we can see the bit that you wanted to take us to anyway.
Okay.
So
Okay, sorry, right, so back to where I was. So it's an A road, which is the classification for roads, major roads intended for large-scale transport links within or between areas, and that definitely applies here. It's part of the primary route network, which designates roads between places of traffic importance, with the aim of providing easily identifiable routes across the whole of the country, and that applies to the A1303. It is part of the major route network, the middle tier of the country's busiest and most economically important local authority A roads, and it's looked after by Cambridge County Council, sitting between the national strategic route network and the rest of the local road network. It's also part of the strategic road network diversion routes, and that runs between the M11 and the A428 in the event of unplanned events or planned roadworks. And it's also a preferred route for use by HGVs on the Cambridgeshire Advisory Freight Map, which is part of the Cambridge's HGV policy.
But Mr. Lonergan, how does what you've said relate to the first two paragraphs in the DMRB introduction under background?
Because it shows it's a road of national importance, and it's a high-speed. It's a.
They don't include those, do they?
Well, it's how we classify it and how we use it, but.
Well, in both paragraphs, there's reference to motorways and all-purpose trunk roads.
And this is.
Are you saying this is an all-purpose trunk
Yes.
road?
Yeah.
Is it?
No, it's the next level down. It's the. It's part of the strategic route network, but it is. No, it is. It is part of the strategic route network,
Yes.
because it's a diversionary route between the M11 and the other routes.
But is it a trunk road?
It's owned by the. It's run by Cambridgeshire rather than National Highways. I'd like to check.
So, Mr. Lonergan, what I'd like to ask you, though, is whether DMRB is the right guidance to use for this type of road, in your experience?
Yes, it is. It's what we use for designing on this sort of road.
And you say what we use, is that a requirement of a local highway authority, or who is it who imposes that requirement?
We've used it for local highway authorities. Yes, we've used it for local highway authorities and county highway authorities.
Right. Now, let's get on to the practicalities of DMRB and standards. What I'd like to understand from you is how a decision maker approaches departures from standards. And just take as an example your proof of evidence, please, page 10, paragraph 5.4.4.
Okay, right. So we use the DMRB, and from that we establish the longitude. The
Can
vertical.
I just
Sorry.
stop you for a moment? I haven't asked a question
Oh,
yet.
sorry.
So in 5.4.4, you say that the C2C route has been developed to fit in within the existing landscape and plan development, and has resulted in an alignment which is not geometrically consistent in some areas, with changes in the geometric parameters present which deviate from standard highway design practices. So that's for the applicant's scheme. But you then say at 5.4.5 that this is not considered to be an issue. So what I'd like is your expert opinion on when a departure from standard matters and when it does not, and how you judge that.
Right. So in this case, we've used fairly sharp radii curves. We have not widened the carriageway, and we have maintained the carriageway at the 3.65. We have not widened it. And in this case, we are using optically guided buses, and we are using trained drivers. So we have accepted not widening and maintaining the width of the carriageway and that radius. And it's because of those additional controls that are in place, because it's used because we've got the optical guidance in the buses and the trained drivers.
Yeah, but the question was, how do you go about deciding whether a departure matters or it doesn't?
On a risk, initially on a risk and safety basis, and in this case we've got the controls to make sure that we can actually accept that we can apply for the departure and have a good chance of it being accepted. Partly it will be done on cost, but in this case it was to minimise the amount of land take, which was one of the benefits, and the other was to push the busway as far as we could around the developments. Yep. So it was a balance of benefits.
So
and risks.
You appreciate that you make a number of criticisms of the CPPF scheme because it's a departure from standards.
Yes.
But it may be said, but you've got a departure from standards, You say that's okay, but you say theirs are not okay.
But we've got...
And what I'd like to understand from you is how you make that distinction. What are the principles that you apply? Rather than the facts here, the principles that you apply to determine whether a departure is acceptable or not.
the size of the risk to the travelling public, the partly I suppose the cost of what we're doing, though in this case it wasn't, the other benefits that may accrue. In this case it was environmental. So in our case the risks from the departure were very low. We've only got one sort of vehicle which reduces the risk as well. So we'd basically look at the risks and look at the users and look at the potential risks to those users and other users.
So the principles you apply is a risk assessment.
Yes.
And a risk assessment of what?
A risk assessment of the impact of an increased risk of accidents and harm to users or those who are around the highway.
To highway users, and what was the other category?
To
Those
people
around
it.
the
Yes.
highway.
So, for instance, if they're on the pavement or on the cycle path.
Were there other highway users?
Yes.
Are there?
Yeah.
So risk of accidents to users.
Yes. And we'd also balance the. We're also doing a balance that didn't apply to us in this case of the costs of actually. If there's a cost benefit that didn't apply to us, the amount of land take that is needed. But principally, it's risk to the highway user.
And you say we, but I'm asking for principles that are applied by a highway authority.
Yeah, but the highway authority would apply it. Right. And then we'll go to the technical approval authority with the departure.
Right. Okay. And so you've had likelihood of accidents to users. Is impact on flows relevant or
Yes.
not? So what are the other?
Yes, the impact on the flows, so the capacity of the highway, the free flowing of the highway, the wider impact on the network.
And so now I'm going to let you do what you wanted to do, which was to explain why the departure in the case of the busway is acceptable. So you're applying a risk analysis, you told.
Yes.
And that's likelihood of accidents and impact on flows. Are there any other criteria before we go to the facts?
I suppose the applicable cost doesn't really apply to this one. It was really minimising the impact on the stakeholders and the environment by minimising the land take.
Okay, so it's land take is also a relevant
Yes.
consideration, and
Yes,
cost.
other benefits to other people. Yeah, and cost.
Right, and then applying it to this geometric.
Applying it in this
parameters
case,
applied.
we've only got one type of vehicle using it, or at least there may be different types of buses, but they would all be optically guided. There are trained drivers on it. We've got ANPR to stop other people entering the busway. So we've got a strong control over the one type of vehicle and drivers that will be using the busway. It's not the same as if we did it on a normal highway.
Thank you. Right, so we're going to come back to CPPF scheme in a moment. I'm now moving to a different heading, which is need for the maintenance track. And if we can take up your proof again, and we go to 5.14.4 on page 20, and there's a heading, Emergency and Maintenance Access Track. And you say it's an essential and integral component of the scheme for 4 reasons that you give. So, is that a complete list of reasons, or are there any other reasons?
Sorry, can you give the reference again?
Yes, page 20 and then
Got it.
over
Yep,
onto page
sorry.
21.
Got it, yeah. Yes, the overarching reason, which I would add to it, is the aim of the route is to provide predictable and reliable and consistent bus service to encourage people to use the buses rather than their vehicles, and then all of these support that. Do you want me to go through them?
Well, yes, if you can just explain why you need it, because the point
Yeah.
is taken.
Okay, and in order to make sure that the actual busway is reliable and predictable, so the first thing we've said is that the emergency maintenance route will be there for the use of in the event of an emergency, for blue light vehicles and for evacuation. Secondly, it is there to provide maintenance access, which means we wouldn't have to, which would minimise, basically avoid the need for certainly small vehicles or for minor maintenance to interrupt the busway. We could actually use the maintenance track to access it, and then the vehicles would park up and carry out the grass cutting or clearing the drains or maintenance of the fence, those sort of things. Next, it provides a utility corridor which allows us to divert other services that are interrupted by the busway, and it gives us a place to put them where they can then be maintained, minimising disruption to the busway. Thirdly, and actually very importantly, one of the things that came out of the HSE prosecution for the other busway was segregating the NMUs and the pedestrians from the actual busway, and by providing the emergency maintenance track and allowing it to be used and actually designing it to be used as an active travel route, it reduces the risk. Well, it should stop people from actually using the busway as a cycleway or a footpath. So it should reduce the number of people that actually incur incursions onto the trackway. I think that's it.
Mr. Lonergan, could you explain the relationship between the track and the busway itself? Does it start immediately adjacent, or is there a verge?
There's a verge. There's a separation between it and the busway. So you've got the busway with a curb, and then we've got a verge, and then you've got the maintenance track. So it is separated from it.
And how wide is the verge, approximately?
Metre and a half, I think. I would probably have to go and
So
check.
there's a separation of around about a metre and a
Yes.
half between the two.
It may be slightly higher, but
Yeah.
I'll check that.
I think I've read somewhere in your documentation that elsewhere, I think it's in Cambridge, there's a potential problem with an upstand adjacent
Right.
to the busway.
Right.
Now,
So the
can you
benefits.
explain that?
So the benefits of the optical guidance is it's actually. So the current scheme in Cambridge is using a tall curb, a tall concrete curb. It's the same as the one in Crawley, and there's effectively a horizontal wheel against that upstand, and that drives the bus.
Yes.
This is optically guided, so we've got cameras on the bus that are reading the road, and they also learn where the bus is. So we don't need any of these horizontal wheels. We're just using. It's rather like the steering control for lane control in your car on a motorway. It's similar that it's actually reading the road, but it's reading more than just the lines.
So there is a curve.
There's only the normal curve, but there's
not the large upstand.
not the sort of 18-inch high one that's on the other busway.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks.
and the big benefit is taking that away and pushing people further away.
Yes. Thank you.
So just whilst we're asking questions about the optical guidance, so does it rely on anything actually on the curb or the roadway that would be different from a normal roadway to pick it up, or does it just?
It's reading no, it doesn't. It's reading what's there. It should be said that the system we used isn't finally decided, but we're looking to use something that's very similar to the CAV Forth system, and it's basically reading the road and reading the lines that are on it, the existing information on it. So it's not a series of sensors down it.
And it doesn't require anything on sort of images or upstands or sensors or
No, it's
anything
all
else?
on the
Okay,
bus.
Thank you.
With the cameras and the computer.
5.6.6, still on the emergency and maintenance access track, core element of the scheme, and then you say in the absence of a UK specified design standard for emergency and maintenance access, tracks alongside sensor guided busways, the design has been based on authoritative and relevant guidance. And then you set
Yes.
it out.
And we settled on 3.5 metres.
Right, but we're just going to turn to this guidance. and you've referred to DMRB, but you've also referred to the Guided Busway Design Handbook, which is our core document 904, and we're going to turn that up in a moment. But if we go to your 5.2.3 on page 8, have you got that? So that refers to this design guidance.
Yep. 5.2.3.
So first published by BritPave in 2004, implementation of curb outlines best practice for the design and implementation of curb-guided busways in the UK, which, as you just explained, this is not proposed to be.
Yep.
But then you say, 4 lines down, although the guidance focuses on guided systems, its core design principles remain relevant to sensor-based guidance systems, as both rely on line-of-sight operation. So why is this guidance relevant to sensor-based guidance systems?
It's mentioned on, I think it's page 4 of the BritPave manual, and the principles are similar. It's purely the guidance method that is different, and the fact it doesn't need the upstand, it doesn't need the curb.
Okay, well, shall we just turn then? You've referred to the BritPave manual. I think we need core document 904. And where do you want to take us in that?
Just make sure I can read it. So 1.1.1 is curb guided systems, and then it goes down to underneath the picture.
We're on page 4.
Hold on, I'm just a minute. So there's page 4 refers to other systems which are being developed.
We got 1.1 you were taking us to.
Yeah, 1.1. I want to go. Sorry, it's not playing. So 1.1.4 is optical guidance, and includes the mention of the reference to that. And it says it's being developed. In our case, we'd use the CAV fourth as a precedent rather than Ruon. And that's under above that is 1.1.3, which is automatic electronic guidance. So things have moved on a bit, but beyond the curb guidance and the centrally guided to electronic and then to optical.
And when we were looking before at 5.6.6, you referred to this guidance and you referred to page 28, paragraph 7.2, which I think in the PDF might be page 26.
.2 is the maintenance access, yes.
Yeah, and what does that tell us about maintenance access for guided busways?
It must be considered, and consideration should be given to providing a wider maintenance track. It basically recommends the use of a separate maintenance track running along the busway. And then we looked at various widths for the actual track.
Thank you.
And it says they can also serve as a public footpath and bridleways. And it highlights that if no maintenance track is provided, maintenance will have to be carried out online.
So, as far as the proposals are concerned, maintenance and emergency access tract is proposed. You explain why it's proposed, and in terms of its dimensions, what's the basis for which you've arrived at the dimensions?
We basically assessed other ones that were in use, and we assessed other standards. And sorry, I'm just finding the... trying to find my width of the maintenance track.
Sorry, what are you looking for, Mr. Lonergan?
The reference for the width, the section for the width of the maintenance track.
The one that we've just been to, page 20 of your proof. When you set out the 4 reasons and you added a 5th.
Right.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes. And then what I'm after is the widths, which I've written down the reasons why we chose it.
And where are you looking?
I've said in 5.14.12 I've stated the 3.5 metres, but I've also given experience from other projects which gave other dimensions, of which we then settled on the 3.5, and the other dimensions were between about 3 and 4.
Right. So you've got
Is it what's on page 11?
Yes, that's exactly what I was after. Thank you. 5.6.6. So we looked at...
Which is where we were when I asked the question.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, so the brick pave guidance was originally had 4 metres. The DMRB looked at 3.5. Another DMRB gave a minimum width of 3 metres for unsegregated. The LTN was 3 metres. And then we took everything into account, looking at how we're going to use it, and we settled on 3.5. So we settled on not quite as high as the BGDH, but otherwise we settled on the 3.5.
Right.
Which then gives space to park a light maintenance vehicle, and for the pedestrians and cyclists to get around it.
Thank you. Now, that's all I need to ask you on the need for the maintenance track. Now, I'm conscious that Clare Hall aren't here, and it may be that you'll be recalled when Clare Hall comes. So I think if I can reserve the right for some questions in examination in chief when Clare Hall come, it's probably better if I do that then. So let's get on to the people who are here, CPPF and the Parish Council. And we're just going to remind ourselves of the history, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'll lead you on where the documents are and so on. So with the CPPF statement of case, there was an appendix which had a CPPF alternative route April 2025, and that is, for those who like the reference, CD 2318-2 OBJ 251. Snappy little title, but that's a reference to the statement of case, and you will recall, sirs, that on the back of it is an appendix which had an April alternative route document. And then, Mr. Lonergan, your firm produced a document in July 2025, and which responded to that suggestion from CPPF. And that, if my note is correct, is core document 931.
Yes, that's right.
Right. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because things have moved on and CPPF have come up with a revised scheme, so we don't need to. But can I just, while we've got that to hand, so this is core document 931, which was a detailed piece of work that you did in response to CPPF, and you've done cross sections, you've done, so if we just, but where I'd like to go please is 3.3.43, which is on page 39. And can we just remind us, where was the bus lane in this proposal? Whereabouts?
Sorry,
in the road?
the paragraph was 3.3.
3.43 on page 39.
And that was CD 931.
Yes. Page 39. The internal number is 32, it's the PDF number 39, entirely my fault. But I thought you were on the PDF.
.32 you said?
Yes, please. Okay, and there's a heading there, summary of non-compliant aspects. Have you got that in front of you?
No, but I'm just getting
Right, don't worry.
I'm nearly there. 3.3.43. Yep, got it.
Yeah. And can you just remind us, because we didn't look at the CPPF document, where at that stage did they propose that the bus lane went? Was it near?
It was in the middle of the carriageway and then on the near side.
Right. And the key issues identified, it says, as I say, we're not going to spend long on this, we're going to spend much longer on their new scheme. Some of the key issues identified which are likely to require relaxations or departures include, but are not limited to, and there's a whole list there, non-standards proposed central bus lane incorporating filter pockets, substandard lane width, substandard horizontal radii, substandard transition curves, reduced separation between the shared use path and the edge of the carriageway, omission of a physical island or hatch markings, omission of hard strips, omission of major road central treatment, and substandard sloping site distances and junction visibility. Now, I can read all those out, but I need to ask you, as an engineer, how serious or not serious are those departures?
They're certainly very serious, particularly in a higher speed road where this is a 50-mile-an-hour road. If we were trying to fit a busway into a low speed urban environment, we would have much more scope for departures. For the A1303, with the speed it's on, with the geometry it's got, and with the traffic flows we've got, these are all serious.
Anyway, so we note those are serious, but we've now got a revised scheme, which was Appendix A to Mr. Lee's proof of evidence. So we got it with the proofs of evidence. And so you and your colleagues have produced a response which is in your rebuttal appendices, I think is the best place to find it. So this is a document which is called Further Assessment of CPPF Alternative Scheme.
Yes.
So produced in response to a scheme put forward.
Have you got a page number in the appendices?
Yes, sir, it begins at,
Page 5, I think.
thank you.
Ah, sorry, that's page 5 of my print. So
It may be page,
well, page 4 is the cover page for the document, and then page
Yes.
5 is
slightly strange page numbers coming up.
the contents is page 7, and that goes on.
Okay, so you've produced this. I just want to see what you've done, and then when you've done it, there's a table, and we're going to go through the table because this is all had to be produced in rebuttal, so it may be that not everybody's completely familiar with it. So it's a further assessment. Now, as an overview, not the detail, as an overview, what have you personally done, and have you been assisted by anybody else?
Yes, so firstly I've reviewed the 2D drawings we got from CPPF, and I was assisted by others within WSP, the Highway 17.
Right, and what have you done? So we've got this appendix, and it has contents, engineering assessment, and so on. Just give us an overview, and then we're going to go to the detail.
So we took the drawings as sent by CPPF, and then we reviewed them in terms of the likely departures or from standard or relaxations that will be needed. We also, as the CPPF design was based on 2D plans, we put them onto cross sections from the topography we've got, and we then looked at the actual CPPF design and the section compared to the actual section along the Madingley Road. We then reviewed the departures and standards. We also had a look at the suggested changes to speed limits, and we reviewed where it should be and the justification for that. We looked at the engineering difficulties, and we looked at the other items that weren't included in the CPPF design.
Right.
So their design is essentially a curb-to-curb one, and it should be said they're working from 2D.
Was any survey information supplied with those drawings so you could see where?
No, all we had was the 2D drawings and a couple of cross sections at the back.
And we have got the drawings in Mr. Johnston's evidence at Appendix F, I think.
Yes, and then we've marked them up, which are sitting in
Yes.
our appendix.
So in Appendix 1, we've got the assessment, which is Appendix A to Appendix 1.
Yep.
We've got Appendix B, a markup of the CPPF scheme drawings.
Yes. Yeah. Appendix A is the commentary. Yeah, Appendix B, yes, is the markup of the drawings.
Yeah, we're going to go to the commentary in a moment, but what's shown on the markup?
So on the markup, we have indicated the areas with the clouds where we believe departures are needed from our review of the drawings. So it gives the departures, it gives the relaxations, and the other thing which my eyesight won't do, and deviations and recommendations which are from good practice.
Right. So
And then that feeds into the other spreadsheet that
yes, well, we're going to come to that in a
Yep.
moment. And then Appendix C is that schedule of departures
Yes.
and relaxations. And then just before we go to the detail, Appendix D, what does that show?
So Appendix D, we've taken the design that's on those drawings and we've superimposed it on the topographic model we've got to give cross sections.
And just so that those of us who are not highway engineers understand this, why do you need the cross sections?
In this case, it's because of for instance, a good example is actually basically to see how, well, if you looked at, for instance, cross-section FF on, you'll see the red line, which is the...
Sorry, where are you taking this?
Another couple of pages down within...
Page 40, sir, I think. Oh, FF, did you say?
Yes, FF, or
maybe
H above it,
39.
yeah.
39,
Yeah.
sir.
And on that you can see the existing ground profile in green, and you can see the proposed in red, and you can see the difference, you can see the amount of work that needs to be done. And in that particular case, you can see on the left-hand side where it impinges on the hedge in front of the American cemetery. So the reason for having the third dimension is to see the actual effect on the ground as it is, and how it fits in.
While we've got FF to hand on page 39, on the left-hand side as we're looking at it, we've got the tended hedge on the side. What does the green broken line show, and what does the red line show?
So the green broken line is the existing profile from topographic model. The red is a road level based on the CPPF design. It should be said that what we've done, and you can see we've taken underneath the vehicles, we've got the existing road level, and we've extended it out underneath the emergency and maintenance track, or the cycleway. So red is the line that will be the ground surface and the finished levels that will be required to build CPPF scheme. Green is where things are now, and that's why we need the third dimension, just to see what the impact is.
So taking this drawing, and we get the whole load of cross sections, but FF, looking at the left-hand side, you'd have to build up
Yes,
the surface to the red level from the green dotted level.
yes,
That would go through the hedge
yeah.
on the left-hand side. So what would happen to the hedge?
It would either have to go or some sort of reinforced wall go in place, but in practice the hedge would go or be moved back.
And then
The other issue there is where the highway boundary is and who owns which bit of land.
so this is, because if we look above where you can see those people standing around by a bicycle having a chat, above that it says existing grass verge along the frontage of the American Cemetery and Memorial, replaced with a shared use path. So that's
Yes.
on,
Yes.
is that on highway land or not?
It would have to be determined exactly where the highway land limits in that case. Because that's one of the questions about the CPVF scheme, is actually which is highway land and which isn't.
And then on the right hand side we've got a tree, and there's a red line that seems to go as build up of ground near the tree.
Yes, and that's to provide a footway on that side, because there are houses along that, or there's properties along that side.
Yeah.
It should be said that they did an outline scheme, but that's why you need the third dimension.
And did they provide this third dimension at all?
No, we used their 2D design, and then imposed it on the road as it is, and then tried to make it fit as best as it could. And it should be said the vehicles we took are at a scale.
And while we've still got this, and we can see, I mean, if you look at cross-section AA, for example, on page 37,
Yes.
and we can see that there is, starting from the left, 1 in 3 slope not shown on CPPF plans.
Yep.
Similar point to the one we were looking at before. No separation between shared use path and narrow running lane.
Yes.
What does that mean?
There should be a separation between. It's part of the guidance we mentioned earlier. There should be a separation of between the actual access track and the vehicles for safety.
Sorry,
And it's
access
also-
track.
and
This
yeah,
is-
sorry,
we're on the
cycleway.
A1 cycleway. Yes.
Cycleway.
Right.
And it was one of the recommendations on the HSE report into the accident was actually ensuring they were segregated. So all of those lanes are narrow, and they would need departures.
Well, I was just going to ask you, if you look under there, it's got 3.25, which appears to be the bus lane. Bit of a jaunty bus there on a slant. 3.25 and it says departure from standard.
Yes.
And then we've got the 2 lanes with, you've got lorries coming either way. Departure from standard, departure from standard.
Yes.
What are those departures from standard?
Well, initially we'd start off with 3.65 and we'd also need to widen on curves. So it's a slightly kind cross section because we've drawn it as though it's straight, but in these cases it is going round curves and it should be widening. So it needs departures for all of those lanes.
And by departures, that's in the highway jargon, but the road
it's less than the width that's specified in the
Right.
DMRB.
And what are the consequences if you have 3 lanes at less than the specified width, bus on one, normal traffic on the other 2, somebody on the cycleway but with no separation? What are the consequences of all this?
Increased risk of accident or injury and reduced capacity because it will slow down, the vehicles will slow down. So there's an increased risk of both the people on the cycleway and of collisions or impacts between the vehicles.
And let's go to cross-section BB. We won't go over all the points again, but we've got departure from standard on the 3 lanes. Is that consistent throughout?
Yes.
That they're all.
Yeah.
So you've got each of the lanes is narrower than the standard advises.
Yes.
And on the right-hand side here, the red line seems to go through a tree. What's that?
In this case, we'd applied the standard verge, and if you apply the standard verge from the DMRB, it then comes through the tree. But that's because the CPBF designs are basically curb to curb. They don't include the verges, and they don't include the batters or the swales.
And for
Or
the
the
uninitiated, why do you need verges and batters and swales?
Partly to support the edge of the road, and partly for maintenance, and partly, I suppose, for, in this case, it would also provide somewhere to protect the actual roots of the trees as well.
Right. And then when we go to CC, we've got a similar issue, all departure from standard, those 3 lanes. And then on the right-hand side, we've got a 1 in 3 slope shown on CPPF plans. What's that?
Not shown on CPBF
Oh,
plans.
not shown,
So
sorry,
what
yeah.
we've done here is the road does actually have a crown just to the right of the bus, and we've shown it because it's going around a curve. We'd carried on coming upwards, and that's why there's that 721 millimetres of fill that's labelled on the right hand side.
Oh.
So the design is done without it should be a lot of the sort of approach that's been taken here is what you'd approach in an urban area with a low speed road with no constraints. We wouldn't do it on this sort of road. We wouldn't expect a medium speed road like this, a 50 mile an hour in a rural area that's a trunk route, or effectively part of the strategic road network, to have anything like narrow lanes like this. We'd expect them all to be standard.
Right. And you say we would expect.
Sorry,
I don't know who we are.
when we carry out, when highway design is carried out, we would expect the highway design.
Well, I'm going to ask you about approach to departures later. So those are the cross sections. Can we go on to the next document, which is called Design Speed Assessment, which is some drawings. But if we go back to Appendix A, which is the report itself, and to page 16, we've got a heading, Proposed Changes to Existing Speed Limits. And so here, the current limits, you say at 3.6.1, are considered appropriate given the road's characteristics and are consistent with the Cambridgeshire County Council's speed limit policy. It's a lower quality A road with numerous bends, junctions and access points, and you say placing it firmly within the 50 mile an hour upper tier of the policy. Can you and then you've got a table. Can you just explain that for us, please?
Okay, it's based on the upper tier is because roads have a predominantly they're a traffic flow function rather than multiple accesses on the sides, albeit there are accesses here. It's a lower quality A and B road because of the number of bends, number of junctions, and while it doesn't have the number of accesses that would take it to a lower tier, it does have significant accesses. For instance, the American Cemetery. And so basically it fits within the upper tier of the 50 mile an hour. And the reason for looking at this is that CPPF were looking at departures based on taking the road speed down to 40. So that's why we had a look at where the road speed should be, and at the moment it is at 50, and that's part of the policy.
But if, to the uninitiated, you say to yourself, well, it's reduced to 40, what's wrong with that?
It reduces the capacity of the road. So it'll reduce the capacity of the network in that area. It's also a diversionary route. So, and the other thing to bear in mind is that we're trying to run the buses at 50 miles an hour. For most of the busway that's off route, we're actually running at 50. So it would take the buses down to as well.
So is it appropriate
No, I don't believe it is. The other thing about the other thing about taking it from a 50 to the 40 is looking at the DFT guidance for setting local speed limits, 3.6.5. Basically, speed limits should be evidence-based, self-explaining and aligned to driver's perception, which is looking at how people will behave when the road isn't busy, so the likelihood of self-enforcement, the risk of people feeling it's a 50 mile an hour and when it's a 40 and either driving too safely or driving too fast or unsafe overtaking. It could lead to, and that can lead to a greater speed variance between the drivers, which would increase collision risk. Reduced traffic flow, which effectively is leading to delays and congestion. A lower credibility of the speed limits because it feels like a 50 when it's a 40. And people actually using other roads because it's quicker to use a minor road to go round rather than actually using these ones. And when it's being used as a diversionary route, it wants to be running at a 50 to support the diversion.
And so that's speed limit, and then you've got at 3.7 potential engineering difficulties. What are they? I mean, you're a experienced highway engineer, you know how these things are done. Is it doable?
I don't think it is. I think it's not just I think the number of departures makes it unviable, and we couldn't confidently, well, we wouldn't expect to get it approved by the Technical Approval Authority or SES for the actual departures. There's also it's a 2D scheme. It doesn't allow for instance, moving the utilities, the drainage, the swales, the verges, and then it also impinges on the routes along the triple SI, and it also interferes with the entrance to the American Cemetery. So no, I don't think it, and that's apart from the other risks with there's more turning moves on the bus lane across the actual traffic lanes.
This was I was on 3.7 engineering difficulties, starts with drainage and then it goes through various others.
Yeah, sorry.
So I was hoping you'd just give us a summary through there of what the problems are.
All right, sorry. So the oversized pipes would basically act as a reservoir.
Let's not go straight into pipes. Let's just remember that this has come in a rebuttal because we had to respond to CPPF, so we all need to understand what it is that you're saying.
Okay, so the engineering difficulties. So we need to replace the existing drainage that's there and bring it up to the current standards for the new road and for the new widths. We'd also need to have a look at the SUDs, which are the new which Cambridge now strongly advocate for the drainage. We need to look at the underground and overhead utilities, and these would need to be diverted or protected prior to the works. We need to look at the pavement condition. We may not be able just to extend the existing pavement for the bus lane. We would expect to have to do works to the existing road, partly both condition and the levels. The buildability is, I think, in this case, in the CPPF report, it suggests we could effectively build on one side. I'm not convinced there's space to do that, and certainly by the time we've got the safety zones between the working areas and the running traffic. So I don't believe that the actual CPPF design, it's been shoehorned to fit between within the curb lines and between the fences, but I don't believe it's deliverable with the engineering requirements that are needed and to fit within the constraints that are there. And I don't believe there are too many departures, and all of them are too significant.
Well, we're going to go to those now because...
Sorry, just before you got onto that, Mr. Lonergan, you mentioned approval by SES or SES?
SES or TA. So the departures go to the County Council and to be approved. I think it's SES for the County Council, and it's the highways equivalent to be the Technical Approval Authority. But they basically get the County Council to be approved. So we prepare it, we then have to go and negotiate.
So what's SES, or is that
just... Well, sorry, the acronyms change, but it's an approval authority within Cambridge County Council.
Okay, so that's just Cambridge Council.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because they're
Mr. Lonergan, were you saying that the CPPF schemes designed to go between the existing curbs?
The information we've got is basically trying to fit it on the road as it is. Sorry, I'm not saying it's sorry, their design covers curb to curb for their design. It doesn't tell you what they're thinking of doing beyond it. So
no,
it's not
are you talking about the existing curb?
No, I'm talking about they've designed it curb to curb for their scheme, not to fit between the curbs that are there at the moment, because that wouldn't work. Yeah. And it needs to look at the verges, the utilities, the swales, and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So if we understand that, so they haven't tried to fit 3 lanes and a cycleway and 2 lanes and a bit. They have designed 3 lanes and a cycleway.
Yeah.
They've got substandard widths from what you say. And then what happens outside the curb of the carriage and cycleway? Have there any designs for what you do?
There's no design for that.
And would you expect those designs?
Yes, because that's what's going to show how things actually fit on the road itself, and it needs to, they have actually got they've got some cover for the actual junctions with the houses, but fundamentally they've designed what the vehicles will run on and the walkway alongside. They've not designed the verges or drainage or the impact, for instance, on the American cemetery.
And if you're designing a road, as I say, you
do the whole lot.
You've done these
fence to
you've
fence.
done these before.
Yeah. Well,
have you ever seen one designed in this way?
No.
Let's turn then to the table, and I think there's a table which appears in your rebuttal itself and a table in the appendix. But are these the same?
Yes.
Right. So we take either. And I think what I'd like you to do, Mr. Lonergan, and don't rush this because this is a very important point. Just walk us through this document, explain what you've done in the time you've had available, and explain these departures, because you identify a significant number of departures. And then when you've done all that, I'm going to ask you for your opinion on whether there's any prospect of getting all these departures signed off.
Okay, so we took the drawings as received, and then we basically reviewed them in terms of alignment with the DMRB, accepting that what we had was a 2D PDF rather than the actual digital model. And we looked at in this case, what we did was we produced a set of cross sections, and we looked at the horizontal alignments as well. So if you look at this, we've got, looking at the table, which is part of Appendix C, we've got we've looked at in this case, if you take the first one, DO1, we've got a cross section. We've said it's a departure. Our comment was the reduced cross section, which is essential to fit within the constraints. So we've looked at why the design was done the way it was, and then we've looked at where it is.
I think, Mr. Flanagan, this isn't like the table in the rebuttal, which I thought it was.
Is this?
Oh, sorry, you're after the comment on the report, or you're after the departures? What?
We got the table, which is Appendix A, and you're in Appendix C, which is
Yeah, I'm in the wrong
fair
one.
enough.
Okay.
So let's just do the table first, and then we can do Appendix C.
Yep.
It was
Okay.
the one that's the same as the one in your rebuttal I was asking about. So it's Appendix
So we're on Appendix A.
Yeah. Okay, so
So looking at the comments, the first one, originally there was a central bus lane which has come out. But there are still filter pockets which don't comply with the DMRB. So the central bus lane has come out. The near side bus lane still has non-compliance to the design standards. The second one is the lane widths, and this is the one where the basis for reducing the lane widths was based on reducing the speed limit to 40 miles an hour. And we've explained that it is a 50 mile an hour speed limit and it should stay as such. The next one is the next one's sort of a comment really about departures from standards required, and it's road safety concerns. The next one is the next two are on the central bus lane, so they come out because that doesn't apply. Environmental and heritage. So this is the Madingley Wood site of special scientific interest, and the design as it is, from what we can understand from the drawings, still impacts the roots and still impacts the trees. So there's still an environmental and heritage concern for the CPPF scheme. And there's still harm to the actual access and the trees and the hedges along the American cemetery as well. The next one is land acquisition, and
you were doing environmental and heritage impacts, were you?
yes, sorry, I was doing environmental and impact. 1, 2, 3. We didn't actually number these. So the sixth one down was the route passes Madingley Wood and the Cambridge American
Yes.
Cemetery.
And then the next heading.
The next heading is both central and the next one underneath that is the detail is the central and near side bus lanes require land acquisition.
Yeah.
And I think that still
Right.
stands because we're not entirely sure which bits are owned and whether we actually need to go outside the highway.
Right. And then
The next one is Natural England, Historic England previously expressed concerns about the options along an en route, an on Madingley Road upgrade, and those still stand because there's still an impact on both the Triple SI and the American Cemetery. The next one is engineering and buildability. So there were no plans originally. Plans are provided. It still doesn't include things like drainage and utilities. And it needs more information, and certainly on the managing the water quality and the drainage. And we'll put more reference in our report. Right, the next one is, so after consent, we estimated that the CPPF scheme would take 1 to 2 years to build. And I think they disagreed with it. I'm not convinced. Our 1 to 2 years was based on post consent, and we had not actually gone through, and I don't think CPF have either with the Highway Authority to see what roadwork times are available. I believe because in terms of widening it and reprofiling the road, it's going to be more than just widen one side and then work across. So that's the construction, and there's obviously still the works that are needed either side of it. This only covers Madingley Mulch to the M11. It doesn't cover the other bits. The alternative concept. When we went through, we believe that land acquisition and impacts on the residential properties and environmental features are unavoidable. So there is an impact on the land take, under alternative concept design. Originally the CPPF said that a compliant on-road solution cannot be delivered in the highway. Sorry, we said it cannot be delivered within the highway. They believed it could. We still don't believe it can, and we believe when you look in the third dimension it can't, and there's still land take required. The assessment of revised scheme. Well, we're going back to the
Yes. So, and it says C, schedule of departures, Appendix C, which we'll come to in a minute.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay. So next one, recommendations, which is the next one is recommendations. CPPF alternative scheme, both original and revised form, is not feasible, and CPPF disagreed. We still don't believe it is feasible or viable. There's too many departures. It needs the third dimension. It needs the drainage and the other items designed to produce a scheme that actually works. And yes, effectively the next one, where we still believe the scheme doesn't meet the essential design, safety and environmental standards, and is unlikely and would not receive the technical approval from the Highway Authority. So the next one is
When there are reference to the September 2024 CPP alternative, what's that?
so that's the information. I think that should be August.
Is that the information you got in August 2025?
Yes.
Right.
Hold on.
Or is that an earlier scheme?
I think that's this is disappearing back earlier. So this is going
Right,
back.
so we don't need to go
No, we don't
through
need to go
these.
back any further.
Thank you. Right, let's then go, if we can please, to where you wanted to go in the first place. Appendix C, the schedule of departures. And we can, if you just take us through those and see what departures the CPPF scheme would require, and then you can express an opinion as to whether they're likely to be granted or not.
Yes. So DO1 was basically reduced cross section in order to fit within the site constraints, and in terms of certainly 50-mile-an-hour road, even a 40-mile-an-hour road, there's a risk of the drivers drifting towards the edge, less space to correct, so more of a risk of actually impacting vehicles.
Can I just pick you up on that observation you made? Even if it's 40-mile-an-hour road,
it's still a risk.
Would it be safe?
Yeah. I honestly think you'd need to go much lower than that to run those lane widths. We'd be on 20 or 30 to run safely with those lane widths, certainly as soon as you get HGVs and buses into them. It's a way of producing a design for an urban area that's very constrained, very low speed. It's not a way of designing something for the A1303 in a rural area with 50 miles an hour.
Right, sorry, I interrupted you and you were going through Appendix C.
Okay, there's yes, and then the other thing about narrow lanes is there's a risk that people actually stay away from the curbs and don't actually use the lanes properly. There's and the HGVs and the buses typically running close to the edge, running close to the edge line. With no hard strip, there's much less sort of flexibility in terms of people driving less accurately. Edge deterioration is another risk, and the hard strips are also part of the surface water management. So we'd end up with the gullies with virtually underneath the tyres. The next one is narrow lanes again. DO2 is narrow lanes again, and again a risk of in this case we'd actually highlighted the potential risk of their stopped vehicles and lateral wander. So it's a similar risk to the previous one. It carries on. The next one is that because they've narrowed down the actual cycle lane, there's a risk that cyclists will actually will cycle on the road rather than actually on the cycle lane, and we put cyclists back on the road and on narrow lanes, and that increases the risks. The next one is the DO4 is reducing the verge widths, safety and operational risks. It reduces sight lines as well as the support to the road and a place for maintaining or for vehicles pulling off. Reducing the sight lines reduces driver visibility and reaction times. Also fails to provide adequate refuge for pedestrian, cyclists and broken down vehicles. And it just describes the use of verges in the for maintenance. DR01 is, that's a deviation rather than, and it is non-provision of the recommended 1.5 separation between the shared use route and the carriageway. And this is the lack of verge or sight lines. It's the risk of vehicles riding up and actually impacting on people on the cycleway. And then going on from that, it's DR02 is very similar. DR03 is again, this is narrowing things down. Non-provision of additional width at fixed objects. So additional width of 200mm for curb shyness, 500mm for vertical features above the 600mm height required. So it's basically there's no space to actually increase the amount of road width around obstructions. The next one, DR04, is reduced cross section, and it is a shared use path is down to 1.3 metres, which is right side. Even though I would say it's down to 1.3 metres, potentially it could be increased to 1.8 with trimming, but it's still a way below the actual widths we'd expect for a cycleway and a footpath. Next one is the reduced cross section, and the proposed footway 1.5 metres below the absolute minimum of 2 metres, and that's on the other side, and that's the risk of vehicle encroachment and people passing each other. The next one is 3.25 metre wide bus lane with no widening on curves, and that's the risk that the vehicles passing in opposite directions will actually clash with each other. It will also slow down, as the lanes are narrowed, it will slow down the vehicles because they'll feel constrained. The next one is reduced cross section, and it's opposite the parking lay-by, and it's substandard sight lines.
Then you've got some junction visibility.
Yes, and then we get a whole load of junction visibility. Certainly, as you're looking at the junctions coming on both the north and south sides, they're already very close to the edge of the highway, and reducing the verges and reducing displays gives an increased risk of collisions. But even with the 40 mile an hour, it still gives an increased risk.
Then you've got crossing visibility.
Yes, there's so relocate limited scope to relocate the crossing, and it's proposed uncontrolled crossing opposite the American Cemetery, and the problem is lack of visibility. And I suppose it's going to go across 3 lanes rather than 2. The next one is the junctions, and this is coming towards the Cromley Business Park, and it's no non-provision of major road central reservation, central treatment. And then unauthorised use of the adjacent bus line by inbound traffic when the lane is blocked by a vehicle waiting to turn right, loss of protection for right turning traffic, and so increased risk of collisions. The one below, which is the Madingley Rise, which is the junction geometry, the junction is on a gradient in excess of the recommended 2% maximum, and the reverse curbs, which reduces the visibility. So then there's a risk of unauthorised use of the adjacent bus lane by inbound traffic, loss of protection, so it's basically an increased risk of collisions. The DR07 is Madingley Rise, existing priority junction located where gradients on a downhill approach exceeds the recommended 2%, so there's an increased risk of nose to tail collisions from right turning traffic. And then the next three are non-provision of curve widening, which gives an increased risk of sideways and head-on collisions due to drivers drifting.
Right.
It's an increased risk of accidents.
Thank you. So I
That's
think
about the end of it, I think.
I think so. And now we want the overview. Just before we do that, just for your notes, as the September 2024 reference is correct, it refers to Mr. Lee's earlier scheme, which is our core document 709. So that was one of the earlier iterations.
And just so I'm clear, that's the reference that's on page 16 of the rebuttal. Is that?
When it goes to September, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we work our way back down. Yeah.
So, overview now, Mr. Lonergan. You've gone through that in some detail. Now, the heading to that document is Departures from Cambridgeshire County Council's Adopted Standards. So, are these assessments against DMRB, or are they assessments against what Cambridgeshire, as local highway authority, requires of its roads?
The speed is a Cambridgeshire requirement, but Cambridge they mandate the use of the DMRB.
Yeah.
So
They mandate
yes,
is,
so
do they?
yeah, so the DMRB is used. So departures from DMRB.
And shall we just have a look at how we get there, because of the earlier questions. CD 736, this is Cambridgeshire's Highways Development Management General Principles for Development.
Sorry, I'm just waking up the computer. So what was that reference again?
It's core document 736, and once you've got there, if you go to page 7, please.
Sorry, just waking it up. Why is it not?
Are we on core document 736?
General principles for development, or I may have hit the one.
It's the Cambridgeshire
Yeah.
principles. Have you got them? We're in the right document, page 7.
I think so. Hold on. Seven. Yes. Yep.
Right, 2.3, top left-hand corner.
Yep.
Got there. And it says major junction and highway link design shall accord with the principles of the Department for Transport Design Manual for Roads, Bridges suite of documents in relation to major junctions, i.e., or strategic links between such junctions. Does the A1303 fall into any of those categories?
Yes, it's a strategic link. Part of the strategic network, it's part of the diversionary route.
Right. reminder, that's where we were at the beginning when we looked at the strategic route.
Yep.
And that's how we get to the applicability of DMRB.
Yep.
And let's, if we can, turn to your rebuttal, please. And I'd like to go first of all to bottom of page 4. You have that, and there's a paragraph E there, and it goes over onto the next page.
Yep. Yes.
And you say there, just referred to Appendix C, which we've just been through, and then you say, in my opinion, it is unrealistic to base a design on the assumption that this number of required departures will be granted on this type of road. So your professional opinion, please, as to whether this number of departures in combination are likely to be granted.
They are not likely to be granted.
Is there any prospect to them being granted?
No.
And if we go to 3.2p, but easier, I just go to page 8, please, and the bottom paragraph. And you say there, I considered it unrealistic to assume that any highway authority would grant the number of departures required. As a result, the scheme proposed by CPPF is not capable of being delivered.
Yes. Yeah.
And so does that apply to a particular iteration of the CPPF scheme, all of them or some of them?
It applies to all of them.
Thank you. And now just a different subject, coming towards the end. We had some discussion this morning with Mr. Whitehouse, perhaps this afternoon as well, on time for construction. So that's your field of expertise. First, the busway. Time for construction following granting of consent, making the order.
2 years, basically 24 months.
2 years. And for the CPPF scheme, if it were ever to receive consent?
From consent, between 1 and 2 years. But note that that is only for building the CPPF as it is. That doesn't go to Cambourne at one end and doesn't go to Grange Road at the other. To significantly shorter.
And you've explained in your evidence how you've got to that, or some of the factors that contribute to that time scale, because you have to work on an existing road.
Yes, and try to maintain, or at least minimise the impact on traffic flows.
Yeah.
And maintain the access to cemetery and all the other restrictions that are there.
Yeah.
Develop the utilities.
So when we go back to your proof, please, and go to page 29, section 6. This was written before you'd seen the evidence of the other parties. You've done a rebuttal when you have responded to evidence.
Yep.
Do these conclusions stand in relation to the matters?
Yes, they do.
And we know your views on the CPPF scheme, that it's not deliverable. Are there any other alternative schemes which you've seen which are capable of being delivered?
No.
Thank you very much. No other questions for you, but I've no doubt there'll be lots of questions probably tomorrow for you.
Thank you, Mr. Lonergan. Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Yep, it's 10 to 5 now. I'm just going to have a quick chat with Mr. Clegg, just to see if there's any other procedural issues. Before I do that, in the timetable, we had indicated the possibility of a 9:30 start tomorrow morning. I'm just looking around to see if anybody have any particular problem if we did start at 9:30 tomorrow. Well, I think that would be helpful, especially given that, as Mr. Clegg indicated at the opening, we will be finishing slightly earlier tomorrow afternoon. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so we'll probably lose track of the days. It's Friday tomorrow. So
It is indeed.
when you're having fun. It's Mr. Baker will be on tomorrow, but I appreciate that it may be, I don't know how long, I think the estimate for cross-examination was 2 hours for Mr. Lonergan.
Yes.
And then we've got Mr. Baker, so it may be we won't finish Mr. Baker tomorrow.
Yes, because you've indicated about 2.5 hours for evidence in chief.
I will be shorter, we've refined it down, because but I'm just, I don't know what Mr. Parker's position is. He may want to do all his cross-examination in one go, and he also has problems with availability of some of the supporting team, I think. Am I wrong about that? Yeah, that's not my fault.
And Mr. Parker, you've estimated 2 hours for cross-examination.
I would hope that was very pessimistic. I don't think I'm going to be anything like that with Mr. Baker.
Okay.
But perhaps we can see where we get to by the time it gets round to my cross-examination of Mr. Baker.
Yeah.
I should flag up, I'm only around next week on the Tuesday, so we'll have to see how that. And I'm going to have a word with Mr. Cameron about a couple of other points on timetabling anyway. So I don't know if that makes any difference to what we do tomorrow. Don't suspect it does, but I just want to flag that up.
No, because if depending where we get with Mr. Baker on Friday, the intention would be to just carry straight on the Tuesday, I think. So that's when you're available.
Yes.
I'll be calling Mr. Baker. I won't be here on Wednesday, and Mr. Henderson will be taking over, so it fits in with Mr. Parker's availability fits in with that, as far as we're concerned.
Okay, thank you.
The other business procedure statements have gone for out, and I think that's done by the end of the week if they go out.
Yeah, Mr. Clegg just reminded me there, earlier in the week, we asked for statements of common ground, and I think we said tomorrow would be a good time to get to where we've got to. What's the update on
So we are reasonably confident you will get to with the District Council and the City Council. They went out for signature today, so they should all be signed and with you at some point during the course of tomorrow, accompanied by the list of agreed conditions with the City Council and the District Council. The other two with Clare Hall and CPPF, obviously they arrived back with us, as you know, much more recently. We will have gone back to them before tomorrow. There is the possibility that they could be signed later on in the day tomorrow, which is essentially, so you're going to see quite a lot of disagreement, and we've said what we want to say on each side, but I'm not going to promise those. We will try, but it's probably more realistic you'll get those two on Tuesday.
Well, I mean, just so, Ms. Henderson, in some respects, having a clear agreement as to what the parties disagree
yes, absolutely.
on can be as helpful as understanding what you do.
And that will be recorded for you,
yes,
sir.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, the sooner we can get them, the better. If disappointing if they're not available tomorrow, but if they are available on Tuesday, that would at least be helpful to start the week with those.
Yes, I'm
those
pretty
documents.
confident you'll get those for Tuesday.
Thank you. Is there any other procedural things? Well, unless anybody's got anything pressing to raise now, what I would just say is that I noticed Mr. Parker, Mr. Cameron, you're going to discuss issues of sort of timetabling. I'd really appreciate if you include Mrs. Tappin in those discussions, because she's obviously got the very difficult challenge of trying to get the programme to work for everybody. So please, if I could just encourage you to include her in your discussions, please. Okay, thank you.
Of course, she and you are going to have the final say, but so makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Well, in that case, I make it 5 minutes to 5. I'm going to adjourn the inquiry, and we'll resume tomorrow at 9:30, and we'll start off with. I'll ask Mr. Parker to take Mr. Lonergan through cross-examination.
Thank you, sir. And just to confirm.